One recruiter just made $175,000 in placements in 3 months of working together. Another recruiter went from $150,000 in 2023 to $108,000 in January 2025 alone, all by following the system. If you don't have a system, you're making this harder, much harder than it needs to be. The Digital Recruiter Bootcamp is for recruiters like you that want a proven system that works on LinkedIn to open up the top of funnel and generate more opportunities with quality clients and candidates, people that you want more of, right? No more chasing the emails, the call, getting in front of your market, standing out, looking like the expert that you are. You have the knowledge, right? There's competition domestically, there's competition internationally. You have to be able to stand out in 2025. So you have more opportunities for closer the money activities and meetings and more time closing deals. Digital Recruiter Program makes that happen. You're not going to be relying on tech or Zoom Info or Clay. You're going to be relying on you and you getting better, because that is the key. And all the noise in the world is managers want to work with you. We got the Digital Recruiter Bootcamp. It's a year of support. It's 1 week of live coaching with yours truly, plus monthly Q&As. The next class is on March 24th. So make sure to sign up. There are limited spots available. Digital Recruiter Bootcamp membership. It is the best value in recruitment going right now. You get access to our whole system that's helped generate millions of revenue placements for recruiters, agencies, recruiters this decade. So again, hop in there, get the system, learn how to do automation and content in your profile, how to have the right conversations, the right messaging with your prospect. No more messing around. Check out the link, sign up digitalrecruiter.io/bootcamp. Make sure to get your spot today, and I'll see you in there. Welcome back. Another episode, Digital Recruiter Podcast. This is a super fun one. It's my first person that I've had on with a recruiting media company, and actually working together for the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit in Las Vegas in April 28th. Wait, I got to make sure I get my dates right. I'm getting there the 28th. The summit's the 29th and 30th. Excuse me. April 29th and 30th. You can check that out at ERE.com. But right now, the Director of Content, Marketing, and Development at ERE, Joshua Jones. How are you, man?
Hey, it's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, the website is ERERecruitingconference.com for those of you at home.
Yeah, the long one. We're going to have it in the episode page and everything else. I was like, okay, there's ERE, the ERE.net, then there's the conferencing, ERERecruitingconference.com. That's going to be in the summary. Definitely make sure to check that out. We're going to dive into, and I love it because everything's back in person. It has been for a couple of years. I'm excited to talk about why it's important for us recruiters to meet up. I'm actually doing a local one tonight with local Ohio recruiters, in person, a happy hour. I can't wait for this conference. But I'm curious. I was like, how did you get your journey into recruiting and now working with ERE? Because I know we connected a few years ago. I was like, this is so cool. There's recruiting media. I was so new to the game. But I'd love to kind of hear the breakdown of your background, how you got into recruiting and eventually ERE.
I mean, nobody picks recruiting, right? It's something that we've all just kind of felt. That's not true. I mean, I have known a few people that they knew when they were younger, I want to be in talent acquisition. A lot of people.
I don't know those people. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people kind of just fall into it. And I was kind of in that category. I knew talent acquisition folks before I was in it, and it seemed like an interesting thing, but I wasn't really sure how to get there. When I was in college, I was involved with real estate and property management and things like that. And then I really thought that I wanted to focus on that when I left college. But due to economic situations and some other factors, I needed to get a steady paycheck, which being involved with real estate and moving to a different city was not going to provide, hey, I've got this much money entering my account every month.
Right.
I started interviewing, and a team of recruiters reached out to me for one of their clients. And it was a client involved with property management. The TLDR is I ended up not going to work for their client. They invited me to come work for them. And that was kind of the beginning of my recruiting career. And over the years, I was actually thinking this might be an interesting LinkedIn post at some point. I have filled out 0 job applications in the recruiting space. So that first one, a recruiter reached out to me about one of their clients and I ended up working for them. And then over the years, I've kind of daisy chained opportunities just
Yeah.
by hearing about different teams or different people and getting introduced to different folks in the space. And so most of the work I've had ever since those beginning days have been through my network and word of mouth.
That's super cool. And even how you got into recruiting is very similar. I was called by Aerotech about a job they were filling for. And in that conversation, they're like, have you thought about being a recruiter? I was like, I have no idea. Right. And then they, put me through the process. And it's felt kind of similar. I also, since then, haven't had a job application. So how about? I mean, there's something about once you're in it, right? It is like it's all about relationships. So much so. So, what did you start?
I
Yeah, what's
I
that?
interviewed I interviewed at Aerotech,
Yeah,
actually. They reached out to me at one point. Their office was off of 290 in Houston, and I didn't live anywhere near there. And drove over there for the interview that it was like at 8:30 or something in the morning. And I knew during the drive over there, there's no way I'm taking this job just because of the commute.
yeah,
290, I don't know how it is now. I'm sure it's still bad, but back then it was notoriously bad. And so I got there and really, I think within the first minute or two of the conversation, I said, I'm not going to take this job.
yeah.
There's nothing that you can say right now that's going to make me do that commute every day.
It's real. I mean, I started out in the LA office, and everyone how bad that it is there. You got Houston, you got Dallas, Atlanta, bad traffic cities, and yeah, it's there's something an hour and a half, 2 hour commute each way for entry level recruiting job. Nah, no thanks. Right? Yeah, location proximity matters. Uh, so you start what kind of roles when you were in recruit, like were you focused on like any skill set like these was all real estate? 'Cause I know you had you're a recruiter, then kind of the sourcing strategist. Like what's kind of been like when you were recruiting, what was the main focus or some of the focuses? Yeah.
Yeah, that first job out of the gate was mainly working with property management clients.
Yeah.
So when I got into that, started, I was running a full desk. So, and there we did have a book of clients when I started, but was doing a lot of business development as well as working with existing companies that ran apartments and things like that, and was placing leasing agents and property managers and maintenance folks and people that they call make ready, which is basically when an apartment flips, if somebody moves out, they've got to go in there and paint the walls, replace the carpet or whatever. And really started off doing that pretty, a lot of it was entry level type stuff. Some of the folks that we did for the maintenance and make ready was HVAC type people,
Yeah.
but it was really doing that. And then from there, the next opportunity that I had, was kind of a springboard into a company that did a lot of accounting and finance as well as real estate and construction. And then on that side of the fence, I started recruiting more folks that could do construction work. And where the rubber really hit the road for me back then was we had some clients that were renovating schools and building new schools. And it was during that process that I really started to understand sourcing. Some of the jobs that I was working on back then were pretty tough. Um, and there was this moment where, as recruiters do, I think every recruiter, if you've been doing this long enough, there are days of the week that you're sitting on the couch and you're watching Family Guy or something, and you're like, what am I doing? It's really what I'm supposed to be doing because it's so hard and it can be so thankless. And you've got your leaders breathing down your neck, especially when you're agency, right? Like you haven't made a placement in 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, and that panic sets in. You're
Yeah.
like, what am I going to do? So I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, what am I going to do? I have these open jobs. And I started surfing the internet, and it just dawned on me there was bond money that was going through the state of Texas where all these schools were getting funding to build new wings and all of that stuff. And it just occurred to me, I said, I should pull up a map of all of the school districts in the state of Texas. And I think that was when it really clicked of like what sourcing was. And at this time, I was at an organization where they just wanted you to bang the phone. So if you were at your desk just surfing the web, they'd say, why aren't you on the phone?
Yeah.
You've got your call list, all the things. But I got to the office the next day and I had a map of all of the school districts. And I called every single district and I just said, hey, really started simple. Did you get any bond money? How much did you get? And so the first day I just determined which districts had money coming in. And then the next day I called back, hey, I heard you got $30,000. What's your plan to do with that? And they'd say, oh, we're going to build a new gymnasium. We're going to put in a pool or whatever. And the cool thing about information, when you're digging for it, when you have information, it's like water and it attracts more information. So when you call into those school districts and stuff, and you're like, hey, I know you got $30,000 to put in this gymnasium, da, 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 da. Who's working on that? Who do you got doing that? And then I would find out who the people were that were building it. And then I would call into those companies and say, hey, I know you're working at the elementary school. You're doing this and this and this. And then because you already know all the details, then when you ask for Bill's number or whatever, they just give it to you because they think you know Bill.
Look at that. I'm so glad I asked. Because that is BD 10. I mean, that's not even 101. That's 201. That's 301 right there. I love that. I mean, that's just like the innovation. And it's interesting you mentioned like there was really no opportunity for you to do that. You had to like go make the time to do that, which is interesting, right? I think that's some of the issues I know we'll talk about with agencies, sometimes the corporate, like can almost be focused on things that actually curtail and curb innovation and creativity and really be able to like break in doors that way. I mean, that's everything in terms of intentional outreach that people are trying to figure out with cold email now and cold calls and LinkedIn. I'm like, do your homework. Like step one is do your homework and come up with something that sounds more intelligent than, hey, do you have any hiring needs? Like I recruit. Right? I mean, you brought so much to the table in those calls, and God, the water analogy is perfect because I've never been able to figure out how to say it, but you just did. Of like information attracts more information. It's like you just keep that domino. You just got to get started and get curious and gather that intel. What was the result of all that?
Placements.
Yeah. I mean, I had to ask. Yeah.
And it was tough because, a lot of those jobs, school starts no matter what. There's a lot of opportunities where there's kind of project creep. And for whatever reason, we're going to have a delivery date of July 15th. And then July 15th comes around and you're not where you thought you would be or whatever. You can't do that in education. Those kids are going to be starting school on August 15th or whatever it is. So when I had those jobs, failure was not an option. And I mean, we were an agency, right? So of course, if we didn't make the placement, they would, whatever it is. But like, that's a very specific goal. That's a very specific delivery date. They need somebody working on that job now because those students are going to show up.
Well, I mean, urgency and threats are the two biggest things in agency recruiting. Like you have to address those, understand what those are. And so you established urgency, and that's typically one of the biggest problems that I see is, I got roles, but they never close or they're going to push it off. It's like, well, you got to be able to establish a start date. And it's like you had that was baked into the project, which is great because then they have to hire. So that eliminates one of your concerns, and you just got to figure out whatever your threats are, whether it's another agency or a candidate's not responding. But at least you've addressed one of the main two in urgency.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest, that was a stressful situation because you've got the due date, right? But on the flip side of that, yes, you've got this distinct moment in time that you've got to deliver on. But on the flip side of that is when you're dealing with teams or hiring managers, there is no due date because then they can just jerk you around. And I can remember there's one guy in particular on a team that I used to work with. He would get very frustrated with me because he would bring a lot of stuff to the table that wasn't real. And so we did hit a point where I'm like, I'm not working on any of this guy's stuff unless I'm involved with the final conversations because it's not real. And so he would say, this company's ready. I got a live one. And okay, bring me in the call. Let me know. And I'd ask questions like, okay, if I present the best candidate you've seen, when do you want them to start? I've got people ready to go now. Can you interview Monday morning at 9 a.m.? And the guy's like, you don't have any candidates. they don't know that yet. Like
Yeah.
if they're not ready to hire who they want to hire at 9 a.m. on Monday, is this real?
Yeah. Eh, You have to. What's the start date? What's the consequences if someone doesn't start by then? Right? You have to ask the questions to be able to. They might not have the answer, but that's your answer right there. But if you don't ask, if you're too scared, I think some people hope they just hope for business. They just want to say that there's stuff on the board. But what do you think is going to happen over time? People find out, right? They burn that goodwill, burn that bridge, and then no one's going to work on your stuff. Or if you're solo, right, you have nothing coming in, right? I think you have to be able being honest with yourself as a recruiter, agency or internal, is really critical, and that's why it makes it hard because you have to be on. Did I ask the right questions? Did I really vet this correctly? Did I set that call up for success, or it's like, that person's probably not going to call me back, like. And it's easy to blame the other party, but it's a lot of times kind of looking in the mirror, right? That's where a lot of the problems and answers start.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the problem. There's a lot of folks out there that if they interpret the lack of a no as a yes, and that's not true. There's more to yes than not saying no.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a no. It means you can move on, and a lot of times in recruiting it just means not right now. And that's okay. And yeah.
That's true. No often means I need more information or I'm not ready yet. And no also gives you the ability to free up your time and focus on something that's a priority. So you do want to drive to the yes and drive to the no with equal perseverance.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna, I mean, especially if you're an agency, you're only as successful as your last hire.
Yeah.
So you need to be seeking answers and seeking information in real time, all of the time, and then leveraging that information to bring in revenue.
Amen. It's exactly it, right? It's a lot of intel gathering, and then we got to distill and make sense of it all, day in day out. That's why it's a roller coaster. That's why the wins are great, and then the losses can sting. But there's always something to learn from on both sides. So you go agency, and then did you go corporate for a little bit? Did you go right to ERE after? Or, yeah.
Never been corporate. I was with a PEO before I was with
Yeah.
ERE. Jeremy Roberts, who used to be the editor of SourceCon, sent me a message on social media to the effect of, "Hey, when you're away from your desk, give me a call." We were in communication a lot.
Yeah.
He'd never sent a message like that. "When you're away from your desk, give me a call." I'm like, this is weird. So I immediately bolted outside and called him and said, "What's up?" And he said, "There's an opportunity over here. We're looking to pick somebody up with kind of a sourcing background, XYZ." And he said, "It makes sense for me to interview." And I did. And the rest is history.
I love it. I mean, it's a little bit of a. So, did you start sourcing there? Because I mean, how did you end up getting into kind of more of the content piece and kind of get away from more like the recruiting and the sourcing side? Yeah.
Back then, there was 3 editors. Actually, there was 3 or 4 editors kind of running the different brands that operated under ERE. Yeah. And excuse me. Initially, I was helping to identify speakers for the conferences. They wanted to raise the bar and just improve the caliber of the speakers that they were bringing to the table, and they had not yet had a dedicated sourcer on the inside. Jeremy Roberts is an incredible sourcer, so he's definitely got sourcing chops, but he was involved with creating content, managing editorial, planning the events. He had his hands in a lot of stuff. He didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to sourcing. And plus, there was multiple editors within the organization, and they needed sourcing help. So initially, I was kind of brought in. I think my title was associate or senior associate, but I was really functioning in a sourcing capacity. And I would just get a really good idea of what the narrative or what the theme of the upcoming agenda would be for whatever conference it was. And I would go to market and find speakers that aligned with that vision.
Oh, that's really cool. Really cool. And so for the listeners that might be introduced to ERE for the first time, can you kind of give a breakdown on what ERE is, how long it's been around, kind of, and who ERE serves?
Well, ERE was founded back in 1998, and there's a name that existed back then that isn't really used anymore, the Electronic Recruiter Exchange. And really, it started off as an online forum for talent acquisition professionals to share best practices There was a lot of articles and blog posts that helped recruiters just do their job better.
Yeah.
There was one article back then that got a lot of traction that basically explained how recruiters should approach counter offers. So if you're working with a candidate and you think everything's going well,
Yeah.
and you talk to them on Friday, and you're expecting them to start on Monday, and they say, "Hey, I got it. My company countered. I'm not going to take your job because they're going to go ahead and give me the raise that I feel like I've always deserved."
Yeah.
There was a really good article back then that kind of mapped out how to approach that and what you're supposed to do to guide the candidate through that process of not accepting the counter offer. I would argue that's probably dated methodology. I think back then there was a time where it's like you never accept the counter. We're in a different market.
Yeah.
We're in a different era. So I don't even know if that holds true anymore. But I would say that for a long time, ERE has done a great job with providing the right content at the right time so that talent acquisition professionals can be more effective within their roles. I joined in 2014, and my entry point was SourceCon. So I was a sourcer,
Yeah.
really focused on that top of funnel identification and engagement of candidates. Didn't really know a heck of a lot about the ERE brand itself or the conference. And when I started going to the ERE conferences, which I'd never been to until I joined the company, I'd been to SourceCon a bunch before I joined the company. But I would meet people all the time that would say, I would not be where I am today in my career had it not been for the information provided by ERE and the speakers that you work with. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so I think that's at the core of what we do. We want to continue to be providing that information to the TA community.
And as a reminder, because I know I've kind of had a hilarious intro to it in the beginning. It's April 29th and 30th in Las Vegas. It's a super cool resort. Like it's like everything there. So definitely check that out. But because I'm excited to go, I haven't been to an official recruiting conference since I started Digital Recruiter. So this could be like my first like legit recruiting conference, and I absolutely can't wait. And I've been asking you, I think I probably asked you 5 different times, like, what makes it, unique. I've been really interested in the speakers. I'm excited to speak at it as well and kind of share the digital recruiter flair. But there's some like really cool stuff. Like, what is it about the in-person experience and kind of bringing, TA recruiters together? Like, why is it so different than just the virtual stuff, especially with what's happened in the last few years?
Even when I was first attending SourceCon before I joined the team, when I first started going to events, I would type on my keyboard until the battery died on my laptop. I'd have spiral notebooks and I'm just scribbling, running out of ink out of my pen. I really thought it was 100% about the sessions and the speakers. And I'm not knocking the importance of that. The speakers and the sessions are so important, but of equal or potentially more value is the other attendees that you get to meet there. I remember the first time I participated in SourceCon After Dark, which is kind of a gathering that would happen typically at the bar or something after SourceCon. And we kind of do it sometimes and then we don't. Now we are more focused on the SourceCon Hackathon, which we can talk about later. But SourceCon After Dark was really just kind of, hey, grab your favorite IPA or whatever it is, come down to the bar and meet everybody and just talk about what's keeping you up at night. What open recs do you have that are driving you crazy? And everybody would be down there with their laptops. And it was amazing, way more valuable than the content of the sessions. I mean, I could go, hey, I've got this challenge and I've tried XYZ. And we talked about that earlier before we hit record. You mentioned that story about your son and how he seems to be a problem solver. He's like, hey, I noticed we have a challenge. I've got a solution. Always, whether you're going to a meeting or you're meeting people within your community about challenges that you're having, don't just say, hey, I have this problem and say what the problem is. You should say, hey, I have this challenge. This is what I've done so far. Or this is kind of what I'm thinking, right? Don't just go out there with your hand out and want. But I learned so much from those folks, from those processes. Glenn Cathy, Mark Tortorici, just a lot of folks back then were so helpful. And coming from agency, I worked with a lot of teams where the really successful recruiters they tended to hold their cards close to their chest.
Yeah.
So when you're like, wow, how come that person's billing $1 million a year, like with their eyes closed, like they make it look so easy, and you try to get information from them, they weren't very apt to share.
Yeah.
And suddenly within the SourceCon community, there was all these people that were willing to show off their tricks. Like, this is how I do what I do. And it was amazing. It was just it was like open source. It was awesome. And that's the value. And I think, we are going to be doing a hybrid event. There is a way to attend online virtually, but you can't put a price on the value of being there face to face with folks, going to the round tables in person, uh, eating lunch with everybody, and then going to happy hours and gatherings and receptions and things like that in person, and getting to meet these folks. Because a lot of times a session is kind of a one-to-one solution,
Yeah.
right? Like, here's this challenge, this is how you solve it. Here's this challenge, this is how you solve it. Whereas if you expand your network, if I run into an issue, and you've helped me a lot, I haven't even known you that long, but you've already been so gracious with your time and you've helped us so much. But if I run into something in the future and I'm having a challenge with automation or like different outreach techniques, or how do I, like, this doesn't seem to be landing right with my audience, I can go to you and say, hey, Clark, this is what I see. This is what I've tried. What do you think? And so that's an ongoing solution, right? That's like a tree. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ah,
and people that attend these conferences in person, that's what they get.
I and I think you put it so well. I mean, that's, you've had the ERE and SourceCon community, you've built up the digital recruiter community, and I've met up with some clients in person. And on my I shouldn't say bucket list, but my to do in the next year or two is to figure out some sort of digital recruiter community meetup, and kind of, a lot smaller than ERE, and that's okay. But to start with something like that, because that I'm excited. I get what I'll speak for 20 minutes or whatever, whatever it is. But it's the after that, right? I love sharing the information and then collaborating after. To your point, like, that's what I think I speak at like 4 p.m. on day one, which is great because I go right into happy hour, so I can talk about all this stuff at happy hour with people. I'm like, you guys nailed my time slot. It's perfect. That's when I start to get revved up. First thing in the morning is a little rough for me, but that's what I'm excited about. And like, yeah, seeing the speakers, and every day I talk to people that are like, what is this automation thing? Or like, wow, like, you can actually create content that isn't stupid and actually like drives results, and it's like engaging, and people are happy to read it and are learning something by reading it. And I get reminded when I talk to you and I'm working with you and your team, like, there's so many people I don't know in this industry, and it's like I've barely scratched the surface, which is super cool and super exciting. And you're right, there's something that just gets amplified in person. And you had a great analogy with my son, and for context, that's my 21-month-old son trying to get attention from the 3-week-old baby, the newborn, and he brings over an adult if I'm holding the baby for that person to take the baby, and then my son can play with me. So it's genius, right? Bring a solution to the table. But the other part with in person, I don't know if you've watched the show Love is Blind, right? But they talk to each other in the pods, right, across the wall. Like, they can't see each other. And then you see them meet each other, and sometimes the energy is completely off and just wrong. And there is something about when humans just get together in person, you really get to kind of confirm, I think, what someone's like. And that's like where I think some of the real friendships can be established or taken to the other level, right? You kind of breaks on yet another barrier that a Zoom call can't quite accomplish. I think it's important. That's why I'm prioritizing it starting again this year, is just to kind of get out there and do it in person. Because I love what you said. Like, I asked you, why should people take a week? Right, basically a week to do this, and I just thought you had a great answer for it. I don't know if you want to share. If I'm gonna probably make you share it. With the hustle and bustle and everything going on, like, why is it so important to kind of take that week to just be immersed in your field?
This industry is changing so fast, right? And you're either growing or you're dying.
Yeah.
I made a post on LinkedIn recently. that talks about sharpening your axe. Glenn Cathy, who's a guy that I just greatly admire, he's one of the OGs of this space and of this community. And one of his favorite quotes is, "If you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to sharpen my axe for 4." Right? And recruiting has become largely so reactive, right? There's so many competing priorities. A lot of folks are working within multiple systems. They're moving data around. The talent market is just, it's intense. And so if you post a job, by the time you get back to your desk the next morning, you might have over 1,000 applications. And so everybody's trying to focus on delivering good experiences to their hiring managers. They're trying to carry the weight of the team a lot of times. They're trying to deliver a good candidate experience. It's really, really tough. But I can promise that if you're not taking time to improve, you're going to get stuck and you're going to fall behind, and you might make mistakes that are detrimental to your process. It's recruiting is an art. It's a science and an art.
Yeah.
So yes, you can measure things. There's quantifiable aspects of recruiting. There's analysis and predictions that can be made. You can forecast all of that. All of that is true, but multiple things can be true. It is also an art, and you could never go to a Michelangelo or a Da Vinci or Frida Kahlo or any artist and be like, "Produced. Give me art now.
Yeah.
Give me something that's worthy of the gallery by tomorrow morning." Art requires time. You got to sit in front of that blank canvas and contemplate and reflect and figure out how you're going to approach the problem of making this piece of art. How are you going to approach the problem of filling this position, right? And sometimes it might, to the naked eye, it might look like lack of engagement or laziness, but we as recruiters need to be able to sit there and just, like Homer Simpson, let the drool come out of our mouth. And just do it. That's how I figured out the school district thing. And there was panic and fear too. And sitting on the couch watching something mindless like Family Guy or something. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm literally probably going to get fired in a week if I don't make a placement. I need to figure out where these candidates are. Aha!
There it
And I
is.
wouldn't have been able to do that. I can't do that while sitting at my desk at the office with somebody cracking a whip saying, "Dial faster, make more calls." No, I needed a chance to sit down there and just think about the problem.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking my language. You're validating, making me feel sometimes better by my own process, because I've had to really protect my calendar and really focus on that, because it's easy and it's a blessing. It's a blessing, right? I'm able to leverage business development, have clients, and have I can fill up my calendar with calls all day, every day if I wanted to, right? It's a great place to be, but it's not the healthiest place to be or the most productive. I also need to be able to create content and strategy for myself and for my clients, and protecting my calendar, just giving myself 3, 4, 5 hours to just be at the screen and just think or go for a walk. And because you're never turning it off in recruiting, right? You're never turning the brain off. You're always thinking about it. But even just going for a walk and just like, that's where process, like ideas kind of are able to marinate. And I kind of go back to the computer, and I completely with you. The science of recruiting, you can kind of learn in about an hour. And it's that it kind of can be on a playbook, but the art is a lifetime. Right. And I think that's where now with the AI automation, people are so focused on the science of it, they're losing the art, and what makes people drawn to your company, or if you're an agency, right, drawn to work with you and everything else. Like, that is what's missing. And I think that's what I'm excited about with the conference, with ERE conference, is just there's people that have been there long before COVID that have been doing it, that are also adapting to new technologies. And that's what I'm interested to see, because I feel like I've blended both. I know you have as well. And like, that's where I can always learn that piece, is like really blend that. You're always working on the art. And I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I'm biased, right? I think people should invest in themselves, but I'm biased because it's worked for me and it's worked for so many other people. Versus tech tools come and go, right? Oh, that subscription, okay, I got to cancel that or this, or I'm using a fraction of it. But those nuggets, like improving yourself, it's just, it's that's what makes all all the difference. And it sometimes is just like that one nugget that can be worth the whole investment plus some, right? That one nugget could save your job, or in the introductions here, could help you get your next job potentially too. And I'm sure that's happened amongst attendees and stuff like that, right? When they needed it.
More times than I can count.
Yeah.
I've seen job offers happen at our events because of our events. I've watched them develop leading up to the event, and then the offer is actually made at the event. Hey, we really like you. We want to make an offer. I've seen it time and time again. So yeah, absolutely.
That's super cool. And on that topic, I think it goes to something we talked about, which is what I think drew me to working with your team in the first place was when I asked, I think you and David, who's the CEO, what makes ERE different, right? And you mentioned because there's comps out there, but there's I think that interaction, but also I think just the speakers and everything. It's not like it's not a pitch fest. It's like we're here to learn stuff. And I think some of the feedback I've heard from other ones has like kind of gone off the rails. And I know Joel's going to be the MC at this conference, and Joel's big on going to places that conferences that don't do that as well. So like when I saw his name, I was like, okay, like that's legit because like he's out there doing the content, but he's also recruiting every day too. And so like I don't know if you want to kind of talk a little bit about that because it sounded like it was pretty intentional by your team to like really keep that tradition going.
We've been through a lot of changes over the years, but I can tell you when I joined the organization back in 2014, a lot of the editors came from publishing backgrounds, newspaper backgrounds. There was a gentleman that worked for the team years ago, John Zapp, that he had like this reporter vibe, and he was really good. He could chase stories and follow the money and do research based on earnings and different reports and extract this narrative out of it. And then he would write an article and it was compelling and it read like a story, right? He could take all these facts and put it together into a story. And I mentioned that because I think at the core, ERE has done a really good job of maintaining what I would call journalistic integrity, trying to present unbiased, really important, actionable insight to the recruiting community. Have we been able to do it 100% where there's never a sponsor on stage ever? There have been times when all of the things align and the reasoning makes sense. But for the most part, you're not going to see sessions where people have paid for stage time. And that happens at other events. Oh, you want a 45-minute session? Sure. Sign right here, give us this much money, and you can have the microphone for 45 minutes and you can say whatever you want. The TA community has a very well calibrated BS meter. And they also have a very well calibrated detection of being sold to or pitch slapped, right? And we've all been there. Somebody will add you on LinkedIn. You're like, oh, this person, okay, sure, let's connect. And like immediately 5 minutes later, like, hey, I can help you get 22 leads delivered to your inbox every single. It's like, dude,
for free. Hey. Yeah, you don't pay anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm not even your audience. Like, oh, let me work on all your open jobs. We got 22 recruiters ready to go, and I'm not even recruiting. Like, and if you look at my profile for 10 seconds, you'll know that I'm not recruiting. Or we can get you leads delivered to your inbox. Well, if I'm not your customer and you're approaching me like that, why would I give you my brand to approach my potential customers the way that you're approaching me? That's all insanity.
Yeah.
We've all seen it, and it's all toxic. And so we really, to circle back to I think I veered off course, but we really do try to maintain that agnostic worldview, that journalistic integrity, where it's like just the facts. This is where we're at. This is what you need to know. We've all encountered people in different places that are in places they shouldn't be. Whether it's at a restaurant, you come across somebody on the wait staff and you're like, this person hates their job. Why are you waiting tables here? And we've encountered recruiters that seem to hate their jobs. They should please, like, don't wait, leave the industry, because you're making it harder for the rest of us. But if you want to be here, if you truly enjoy problem solving, if you truly enjoy helping humans find their niche, their career, improve their lives, all of that stuff, and you want to remain here, um, be educating yourself. Whether you're going to the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit or something else, just make sure that you are taking time in a steady cadence to improve your capabilities. Because,
No, go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
I was
please
just going
go.
to say,
Yeah.
no, you don't have a watch coming, right? Like our parents worked for companies and you work for 50 years and then you get your gold watch or whatever. If you're watching this recording, nobody's going to give you a watch. I
No,
promise.
no. It won't be a real watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be some knockoff, whatever. Probably a joke with a pizza party. You're going to get a plastic watch with
Yeah.
a pizza party. But the day of like, oh, I work at the factory and I put this bolt onto this screw and I just do it over and over again. And I've done that for 20 years and now I have my watch. No, like those jobs just don't exist anymore. You're probably going to have to reinvent yourself. I don't know how old you are if you're in the sound of my voice, but what is it, Generation Alpha, they're probably going to change jobs 15 to 20 times.
It's why it's important to build the network, get out there, right? Get better at the current job, build the network. And I think what I was gonna say, before I rudely interrupted you before you finish your thought, was sponsorships can make the world go round. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think even just the air of the sponsor, like knowing that the spirit of it is not necessarily do that, but to still just add value, right? And to have that. And I think that's the spirit and the approach that's there. It's like add the value, right? Demonstrate the value, and the rest will come, right? All that, like the right partnerships will reveal themselves, and that's how I've built what I've built, and I know that's how you guys have built what you've built, and I think that the approach, especially in 2025, people really appreciate and people are responding to, right? It's still all about relationships. Yes, there's automation and AI, and I know that's a big theme and topic at the conference because it has to be covered. But I also know it's the blend, really at the core of it. You might be able to shed more light on this. Is like it's where's the intersection of AI? Like what is going on with AI? How are people using it? But also, what's the intersection of where that's like handing off back to the human experience and not replacing it? Because you can't.
It's true.
Right?
I don't know if I followed exactly what the question is,
Yeah.
but
Well, I guess what's
AI
kind
is
of like the theme? We've talked about AI, I've talked about the human connection, and I'm kind of like thinking in my head of conversations we've had offline. But like, yeah, I don't know if you want to kind of cover into like what you think like kind of the theme and the topic like is of the conference this year and why.
I think it's all of the above. It's AI, but it's really at the core innovation,
Yeah.
right? We're seeing this space change so quickly, and we've gone through moments of change. I mean, before I was in recruiting, there was what I like to call the black book era of recruiting, where basically if I wanted to hire a CPA or a plant manager or something, there wasn't LinkedIn and places like that. I
Yeah.
actually had to. There was somebody that had a directory or a black book or a list of names or whatever. They knew people that I didn't have access to. So you had to pay for the privilege of meeting those folks. There has been a leveling of information, right? Information is the currency of democracy. We all have a lot of currency now. Information is readily available. And a lot of these tech plays that we see out there with LinkedIn and Facebook, it's kind of where do we put the gates up? How do we filter the information? How do we control how much information you can get and when? But at the end of the day, that information, since we all have access to it, it's really who can get to the information the fastest and then spin it in a way that's profitable or beneficial to your organization or to your client or whoever it is. And so at the core of that, we didn't have LinkedIn and all that stuff. And then we had LinkedIn and then Monster and Dice and all these different tools. And there was like these different phases of, oh, this is going to kill recruiting. Recruiting is still here.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, recruiting has managed to survive. We've been playing musical chairs for a while. And if you've ever played musical chairs, when the music stops, everybody races to get a chair and there's not enough chairs for everybody. And somebody's out of the game. We've seen the music stop a few times over the last couple of years. And when the music stops, it's sometimes shocking how few seats are available, right? And so we're going to continue to see a culling of the herd. but there is still space and there still is value for recruiters that know their stuff and are embracing this technology. So if you want to have a seat at the table, it behooves you to continue to learn and educate yourself on everything related to these processes. Because if you don't, there's a tsunami coming, and if you don't learn how to swim, or if you don't learn how to surf, you're
Oh,
going to drown.
oh, it's here. Yeah, I mean it's here, and you get the in-person event in Vegas, right? Who says no to a couple days there? I mean that's great, but if you can't make it or not ready for that, right? There's the virtual piece as well. And I've done virtual trainings for 3+ years now, and they have helped people make a good amount of money. So I can testify that both work, right? Virtual or in person, you can definitely make it happen. I got to ask you, who besides me, of course, who are you most looking forward to for speaking at the event?
Oh gosh, I mean, so we do have some people that have presented before that are coming back. Glenn Caffey, I'm a huge fan. He always delivers.
Yeah,
Absolutely phenomenal. Torrin Ellis is going to be there. Kareem Goddard from AWS is going to be there, who I've actually never met. I was introduced to him a while back, and I'm very, very excited about that session. We actually just recently added a session from two representatives from Anthropic.
yeah.
It's going to be Recruiting Reimagined, Scaling Potential Through Intelligent Innovation. It's going to be phenomenal. And Clark, I mean, of course, I'm looking forward to your session. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, the first time I met you, uh, immediately after that conversation, I was so excited. I ran to them. I'm like, you got to meet this guy. Like his approach is phenomenal. And that's what I love about recruiting in this space. Recruiting is, hey, you have a problem. I know somebody that can fix that.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and be financially rewarded for it, awesome.
That's,
But if you can do that and you just feel good about it, that's awesome too. But I love connecting the dots, and I love, whether it's with my own team or a team that I'm not connected to, if I know that they're having a challenge or they're trying to achieve something and I know somebody that can help them achieve that, I love making those introductions. I
yeah.
literally, like, it just drives me.
I'm with you, man. It's the domino effect. I mean, you're doing what you're meant to do. I mean, that's the fun part, right? Like when those stars align. I know we talked offline before. You got family and work, and there's always stuff going on. But you take a step back, you're like, whoa, like how did I get here? Because 10 years ago I was a little bit of a mess. I mean, I was at Airtech, but about 15 years ago I was definitely a mess. And I had no idea what was happening. So it's like it is cool, and there is that balance between you demonstrate knowledge. You got to make sure you can actually pay the bills, right? Put food on the table, all that good stuff. But it is fun. It is fun when that intersection hits, and you realize like, wow, there's a whole ocean of people out there that don't know this stuff yet, which is super cool, super exciting. I get in my little silo. I just forget that sometimes. So I'm really excited to kind of share this knowledge, and I'm excited to just learn from the other speakers and meet people at different companies. And I worked with some corporate recruiters, but not a ton. So just to spitball ideas and just learn more about how even corporate companies operate, or like some of the bigger staffing firms from a different perspective, right? I worked at Aerotech. I don't know too much about Randstad and some of the other ones. So it's like that's what I'm excited about. Is like just giving myself that week, getting away from the Zoom and everything else, and just like what else is going on out here? Because I think we've done some stuff that's pretty cool, but I gotta like humble myself and be like, hey, the path has been laid long before me on some of that stuff, right? I might be a little bit of a baton carrier right now, but that's it. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited for all those speakers. Any last bits of kind of advice or thoughts, or hey, this is why you got to come out and meet us at the conference. What do you want to leave the people with?
Just keep learning. Everyone's got to keep learning, and we are stoked that you're going to be out there with us. Everything just kind of came together really, really nicely. You are 100% the type of voice that we want within that conference and within the community. You asked me at the beginning of the conversation if I'd ever been corporate or in-house. I haven't. I've always, most of my recruiting has been agency, and I just, that process, that just, you're only as good as your last hire. You only get to eat what you kill. That makes really good recruiters.
Yes, it
I
does.
think that the agency world has a lot to teach the corporate world. And some of the corporate teams that are running really, really effectively are actually being run more like an agency model
Yep.
than what would have historically been described as a corporate in-house model. So
Well, it's the incentives line up, right? On the agency, it's what it forces them to get great, and I think the smart corporate recruiting teams that I've seen are doing the exact same thing, and learning leverage automation, all that, and really looking at it like almost being like mini BDRs or something like that, right? Or account managers, and really starting to take that extra care with how you present a role and benefits and everything else, and starting to treat candidate market with more respect, even if it's candidates are plentiful or if they're not, right? Depending on the industry and the skill set. I think information can get out quicker, so bad reputations can get out quicker nowadays too. And I think that's also helping sharpen some of the iron. No one wants to go viral for the wrong reason, and I think that's in corporate recruiting. That's probably helping a little bit, to be perfectly honest. So I think that's well said. And yeah, man, it's great to have you on here. I'm excited for this conference. Again, check out the link. In the episode, like in the summary, it's going to be ererecruitingconference.com. You'll see yours truly on there speaking on the 29th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So I would love to see you out there in person. If it's virtual, that's cool too. Connect with Josh. As you are, LinkedIn will be on here. Hit us up with any questions that you have about the conference. And other than that, man, I'm excited to see you out there.
rock on. Me too. It's going to be awesome.
So thanks again. And make sure to like, subscribe, 5 stars, all that good stuff. Until next time, happy hunting, y'all.